All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's bonus pain-free living call. I'm always very touched by all the people that show up and take time out of your busy lives to be here. It's really, really an honor. And, it's funny. I've had one of these weeks where I've been remembering all that it's taken to get to this point. You know those times when you reflect back on where you were and how you got to where you are now, and it's really touching and sometimes shocking when you can recognize that you've been growing, you've been changing, you've been evolving, even when it doesn't feel like it. And there are many times in our lives where we go through what feel like dark nights of the soul and difficult times and those ups and downs. And you think, God, is this ever going to change? And then it does, and it's important to take time to really reflect on the progress that you've made and celebrate those moments, because especially if you do have some kind of chronic pain or condition or a symptom or a pattern going on in your life where it's not pleasant and it's been a challenge for you, it's very easy to kind of get sucked down that rabbit hole, negative spiral, and think nothing's going right or nothing's going well or nothing's ever going to change. And you keep trying to figure it out, right? And you go in your head and you toss and you turn day and night. And this is exhausting. And it's easy to lose track of what is working. What is working? Because the fact that you're here today, even though I know, look, I'm not trying to minimize, I know you're here for a reason. You don't take time out of your life to come to a call like this because everything's working well. Okay, I get it. Although some of you might be here because you've had improvement and changes and pain relief, and you've seen the value in working with me and in the methods to my madness. And so maybe you're here and things really are going well. So if that's you, fabulous. But those of you who are suffering and, scratching your head, like, what do I do next? And probably feeling skeptical on top of it all. I do get it. I do understand. And I don't mean to minimize what's going on. And today we are going to talk about what is going on. Why do you still hurt? Why don't these things change? I'm going to dive deep into that. But I just want to remind you that the fact that you showed up on a Zoom call, you're functioning well enough to do that. And I want you to recognize that that's a big deal. There are people I work with who they can't even dial a phone, or somebody else has to do the internet for them because they're bound to their bed and they can't move their arms. I've got people who were in accidents. They're like in body casts and things like that. So I do want you to see that there are things for you right now that are working, that are well, that are functioning, and that you can be grateful for. And the only reason that I even bring that up, here we go, broken record time, because everything is energy. And those of you that know me, I'm like a nonstop, everything is energy. And the reason I say it nonstop is because it really is. Your body is made of energy. Your symptoms of pain and disease are made of energy and vibrational information. And what we focus on with our thoughts puts energy into something. And all day long, you're thinking. We know because they've measured thoughts of many people in science labs, and they find that the average person, now that's average, that's not the overthinkers, which I bet some of you happen to fall in that category. The average person thinks 90,000 thoughts a day. And if not most of your thoughts are on what's not working, what's wrong, what hurts, what you don't like, don't want, you're putting energy into the very thing you're trying to get rid of. And guess what, my friends? This is not going to help you. That doesn't mean I'm saying you should ignore and deny and suppress and say everything's fine when it's not. But thinking about something over and over and over and over, especially the same thoughts that you've been thinking probably for a long time, if it hasn't changed it by now, it's not going to change it now. To think it again and again and again. What it does is it feeds it. It engraves a groove in a tire. It engraves a pattern into your consciousness that is a pattern for what you don't want. Are you with me? And we haven't been taught how powerful we are. Every one of you, whether you feel powerful or not, you are powerful. Now, I get it. Some of you might be rolling your eyes. I can't tell because you don't have your cameras on, but I can feel it. And look, I suffered for years with pain, depression, anxiety, mystery symptoms, with feeling like I didn't fit in. I didn't know what direction to take in life. I didn't know my purpose. My relationships failed. Like, I get it. I really haven't had an easy life. I see now the value in all of it, and it's enabled me to help a lot of people because I can relate to almost everybody and their pain. But that's why I do what I do, is to show you that if I can come out from my health hell, so can you. And I had to make a lot of changes. In fact, I had to pretty much change everything. You might not, but I had to, because I was not helping myself. And I had no clue, number one, I had no clue of the power of my thoughts. I had absolutely no clue about emotions. If you had said to me, how do you feel? I'd look at you like, what's a feeling? What are you talking about? I had no clue. And when I say no, I mean no. I couldn't locate emotions. I couldn't feel them. I couldn't articulate them. When I crashed and burned, the first professional that helped me, you'll laugh, but this is the truth. She took out a piece of paper that had all these smiley faces on it with different emotional expressions. And she said, point to the one that looks like how you feel. Because she kept asking me, well, how do you feel about this and that? And I would just look at her like big doe eyes, I didn't know. And it was even hard for me to locate it on the darn emoticon map. I mean, it was just crazy. And it took me quite a while to get in touch with the fact that I had emotional blind spots, and they were wreaking havoc with my health. I want to talk today about something very, very important. And this comes from science. This is not something, well, it is something I discovered before I found the science. In fact, I discovered it decades ago, but I now have found the science to back it up. So if you've been in my universe for a while, I talk about frequencies, energy, vibration, frequency. You're hearing that buzzword more and more now, right? Online, in podcasts, and summits and interviews. And you know why? Because we've entered the new era of a new type of, I don't like the word medicine, but it's a new type of healthcare. It's actually about health and not disease. Health is based on vibration, energy, and frequency. And we haven't been very focused on health in our world. We've been focused on either maintaining or, like damage control of disease. We've been focused on crisis. How do we deal with a crisis, a health crisis? Well, what if, just imagine this for a change. What if we focus on staying in balance, keeping natural state of health, and avoiding a crisis? Wow, that's a profound thought, right? But that's not what we're seeing and taught to do for the most part. Now, many of you, I would suspect, I know a lot of you, so I know what happened. to you is similar to what happened to me. I mean, I grew up, my father is a doctor. He practiced medicine for 65 years. There was a pill for everything. Everything. Our refrigerator was full of penicillin and pills and all kinds of stuff. I mean, every cupboard, it was crazy. I mean, it seems crazy now, but growing up, I learned there's a pill for everything. This hurts, that hurts, you're coughing, you're sneezing, what, take this, take that. And I thought that was normal. And so when I started hurting and having symptoms and not feeling well, I'd go to a doctor, they'd say, well, take this, take that. So I would, and that went on for decades. Or they'd say, well, nothing's showing up in a test. You just, take this. They'd give me something anyway. And I learned that, like, if you didn't take something, then they weren't helping you. And I had that equated with health. But the fact is I never got well. I got worse and I got more anxious and more depressed. Anybody here relate to that? I didn't get answers. I didn't understand anything. Nothing changed. And I kept trying to hope that it would get better, but it didn't. So I had thyroid issues. I had PMS issues. I had digestive issues. I had insomnia. I had pain in my muscles and joints, sometimes so bad. And I was, for many years when I was younger, I was a professional dancer. And some days I would have such heavy pain in my thighs and legs, I couldn't move. That's not good if you're a dancer. It's not an ideal thing. So, but I didn't know what to do about it. So I would take a pill to kill the pain so that I could move, which meant I was powering through, not healing anything, and it was damaging me more. And anyway, long story short, I eventually got to a place where I go, oh, this isn't working. So I started to seek out natural health, which I had been interested in since I was very young. I had studied nutrition just on my own at the age of 15, 16. I got really interested in a different way of eating than my family was suggesting. I became a vegetarian for a long time, but again, I didn't do it properly. So I ended up getting very sick, losing too much weight, not getting enough protein. And I didn't know that that was even compounding the problem. And all these things I was trying, it just wasn't helping. But later in life, I went down the natural medical trail and I started taking natural supplements, a lot of them. And I'm not against them. I still take some sometimes. But again, nothing was changing. And this is when you start to get really frustrated, right? Because I'm taking handfuls of these supplements. I'm spending a lot of money. I'm worrying about it. And I'm thinking, when's it going to kick in? And nothing's changing, right? And I don't want to believe it's not going to work because I don't know what else to do. Well, that went on for a long, long time. I was eating very, very clean and organic. And I started to discover, I went back to meditation and a lot of very natural practices, which did start to have an effect, by the way. It's really interesting when I look at everything I've been through, the key things that have helped my physical health and my emotional well-being and my mind never came from a pill. I'm not giving medical advice, and I'm not saying that's true for everyone, because it's not. I know a lot of people who find supplements and things very, very helpful. I just haven't found that to be the case for me. What worked for me and still works best today has to do more with the subtle energy that comes from things like yoga, meditation, breath work, being in nature, movement, dance, these practices that are actually really fun to do and that are ancient and are also, now we're seeing from the new science, we're seeing that they have a powerful impact on health, depression, anxiety, mental health, emotional health, and physical health. And here's why. Oh, I know what happened. I bumped my mic and it went into mute mode. Thank you for letting
Thank
me
you.
know.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not sure where I left off, but I have a feeling it was somewhere around um, that the things that have helped me have been really not from pills and traditional conventional ways of dealing with symptoms and pain and disease. What has helped me the most has been it's been methods that are both ancient, like yoga, meditation, qigong, breath work, nature, writing, movement, dance. And this is both, there are ancient practices like this that have been around for centuries, but it's also the new science is showing how these types of things have a profound impact on our mental health, our emotional well-being, and our physical health. And I think sometimes too often people poo-poo that, thinking, well, how could that do anything? You know, I'll never forget, because I had a business coach once who I'll never forget, because I was the only energy healing person in this group. And she made a comment about, oh, that meditation stuff. And don't ask me to do yoga. I mean, that's the last thing I'm going to do. And I remember thinking, oh God, like I'm in the wrong place. But I wasn't in the wrong place. They didn't understand what I understood and the power of it, because everything's energy and vibration. And these forms of ancient healing have a profound effect on your energy field. And your energy field is the key to the future of all healthcare. You're going to see it. I'm ahead of the curve. So are you, or you wouldn't be on this call. Really, we are ahead of the curve. The future of healthcare is all about energy fields. There's science around it. It's based on physics. There's more and more coming out all the time about this. And there's actually research from decades ago, as far back as the let's see, I want to say like 1917 even, certainly the 1930s. In the 1950s, there was a ton of research, but we didn't hear about it. And you know why? Because there was no money to fund it. It's as simple as that. It's not that this information isn't out there. It's that nobody's funding it, so you're not seeing it. And my favorite is from Dr. Valerie Hunt, the late Dr. Valerie Hunt. She was a professor at UCLA, and she was the first person to ever measure the energy field. Think of how profound this is. She discovers that she figures out a way. Well, it started because she got involved with a project with NASA, and they wanted to measure what was happening with the astronauts that were going to the moon and make sure they're okay. And so they would use a particular way of sending signals through an FM frequency back to the Earth while they were in flight. And this would measure their heart rate and all this, things. So they knew how they were doing. Well, Dr. Hunt figured out what they were doing, but took it to the next level, because she discovered that it was only measuring a piece of the information, and she knew there was more, and recognized that the body emits photons of light, and that this can be seen. And we know this from ancient spiritual healing practices and healers that could see the auric field. And she did a bunch of double-blind studies for years with different healers from all around, different types of healing practitioners that were able to see the auric field and confirm they were all seeing the same thing. So, she tested this in a way where she got enough proof, and then she wanted to figure out how to really measure this and bring it into mainstream science more. And she did it using different devices and computers, and created a device that, of course, never got marketed because she didn't have enough money before she died. But this device literally was able to measure your energy field and see where there were disturbances and holes and problems in the energy field. And why do we even want to do that? Because she found, after 25 years in her lab, she found out that frequencies, well, let me back up. She found out that the field was influencing the body. The field comes first. The body doesn't just come up with these things, these problems. The body is the effect, not the cause. The field comes first. And what's happening in the field is talking to the body, to every cell of your body. And your field is like a recording device that has recorded everything that's ever happened to you. And guess what? Not from just this lifetime. It's, if for those of you who are familiar with the word, the concept of the soul, that you've had a soul, that it goes beyond space and time, that has existed forever, before and now and forever in the future. The soul is recorded, the soul's experiences are recorded in your energy field. And what's amazing about that is that you carry everything you've ever experienced with you all the time. Now, here's what's interesting. If you haven't resolved things from your life experiences, it shows up as a disturbance frequency in your energy field that's still influencing you today, even if your body healed. And this is one of the biggest reasons why people, let's say, have an accident, and they have surgery, or they don't have surgery, they have a cast and the bones heal or whatever it is, and they're told, you're fine, you're good, you're healed. But the imprint is still in the energy field. And as long as it's imprinted in your energy field, it's not fully gone. And so I find again and again, maybe some of you have seen this, where people re-injure the same darn place. They have a weak link and they're like, how did this happen again? Now, it goes beyond just injury. It could be a relationship. You keep changing bodies, but the lesson stays the same. Anybody ever go through that? Or a pain that keeps coming back, or something that repeats. There's some kind of imprint in your energy field, and it keeps coming back because it's not fully gone until the energy field is cleared. And so the X-ray might show something as healed, but you're more than a physical body, and that's the problem. They don't even have equipment to measure. Have you ever been to a doctor that wanted to measure your energy field? No, they don't have the equipment. Unless you go to a subtle energy research lab, you're not going to even find this equipment. Most of it comes out of Japan and Russia, and it's very sophisticated. And even that equipment doesn't measure everything that is going on. I can tell you, because, and even Dr. Hunt agreed with that, I can tell you for sure, they aren't able yet. They haven't figured out how to measure everything that I do when I work in the energy field because of the limitations of the equipment in physical form. But that's another conversation. So the point is, you have these imprints in your field, and the disturbances they show up as what's called an incoherent frequency, a disturbance frequency. And you know those graphs, like those zigzaggy lines up and down, like you see on different things? That's what your energy field can look like. It's either smooth and got beautiful evenness around it, or it could have these peaks and valleys, even holes in it. And that indicates different things about your energy field. And so what we want is to have what's called a coherent energy field, where it's harmonious, where there aren't things disrupting your energy field, because literally day and night, there's a two-way communication between the field and your body and your thoughts and your emotions and the field. And it goes back and forth in both directions. You with me? And even though this might sound a little out there, it's really not. And it's so important, because if all you do is say, this is where it hurts, and I can't move my wrist, And why does my stomach hurt? And I feel depressed. And all the solutions that are given to you are purely body-based, physical-based. This is why so many of you are frustrated and feel stuck and blocked and think you're cursed or it's your karma. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you or hopefully to excite you. It's not none of those. It's a blind spot and it's not your fault. It's just that no one has known how to help you and they're looking in the wrong place. And you can just, till you're blue in the face, try to patch up that body. But there's something they're not seeing that's more subtle, and it's a hidden reason. And those symptoms, and that's what pain is, it's a symptom. Pain and disease symptoms are nothing more than symptoms, but they're not the root of the cause. And if you really want to heal, you have to heal the root. And there may be more than one thing that caused it. It could be a combination of things that disturbed you. Think about it. In your life, you've had experiences, people, events, situations that have been disturbing to you. They've been painful to you. You've had an emotional reaction to life. And yet we live in a world that teaches us, don't bring those emotions here, especially those strong ones. Don't bring those emotions here and don't feel them and don't express them. It's unprofessional. It doesn't look good. You're going to look stupid or out of control. You're going to look like weak, different things like that. Anybody ever hear those? And especially if you're a man, you know, from a very young age, you're told boys don't cry, things like that. So you've been programmed like a computer to shut off your emotions. Some people literally are beaten, punished, shamed for their emotions, which are energy and a natural part of life and full expression. And it's the full expression of you that is what feeling alive and being healthy is all about. And it's the suppression, the shutting down, the closing off of you and your expression that is dis-ease. Think about that for a minute. Full expression of how you really feel, who you really are, what you like, being seen, being heard. This is a state of health. This is a state that will bring you optimal health. And being shut down, shamed, blamed, beaten up, criticized, told no, 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 you're not enough, don't say that, don't look like that, don't speak that, don't be seen, don't be heard. This is a state of suppression, which is a nice word for disease, waiting to happen, pain waiting to happen. So I want you to begin to think about tonight, where in your life have you been fully and freely expressing yourself? And where in your life did you begin to shut down and hold back and protect and not feel safe? Not feel safe enough to be yourself, to speak your word, to feel free enough to be seen and heard? Or where were you told they didn't want to see you and hear you? This is how you get to the root. The roots are typically invisible and they don't show up on tests. They're not about physical things. They become physical. The roots of the problem end up becoming physical if you go on long enough in that experience without resolving, particularly the emotions. Dr. Hunt discovered that emotions are the strongest frequencies emitted in the field. I want you to think of emotions. Okay, think of like a guitar string, and think of emotions as vibrating the guitar string. Well, your body, your central nervous system, your central column, your nervous system is your guitar string, and it gets vibrated by emotions. Emotions can either bring harmony or disrupt your entire system. And think about the fact that emotions are invisible and you're around them all the time, not just your own, but everybody else's. They're vibration. Emotions are like music. They are made of vibration. And we know from, again, science that sound travels in waves, invisible waves, right? You turn on the radio, the whatever, iPad, the phone, you turn on the music, you don't see anything, but you hear because of the sound waves that carry the information of the vibration we call music. Your thoughts and your emotions are no different. Think how profound that is. You're playing music to yourself all day long, from yourself to yourself and from everybody around you that you are allowing into your field. So think about that. And particularly think about growing up. I call it the fishbowl. What fishbowl were you soaking in as a child before the age of 8 or 9? If I were in there with you, what were the vibrations around you in the environment around you? What was the emotional climate in the environment around you? What feelings were you exposed to? Now, we also know, this is again, all science. You're born in the womb. Before you're born, you're literally bathing in, you're in water, you're in fluid. And we know from the work of Dr. Emoto that water is programmable by language, by emotion, by thoughts. The crystalline structure of water changes based on the thoughts and emotions that you put into the water. So think about this. You're in your mother's womb and your mother's having thoughts and emotions. And that's literally creating a certain structure in the water that you are living in. And I talked about on a recent one of my classes in my high speed healing universe, I did a whole call on this and I showed slides of Dr. Emoto's science, because they showed how just literally saying the word thank you over a glass of water changes the structure of the water to these gorgeous snowflake looking photographs. He photographed it. And if you think about hate over the water, just thinking about hate, you cannot believe the disgusting, murky, muddy, brown, gunky, ugly shapes that the water takes. It takes on the form of what your words, your thoughts, and your feelings are. So I know for a fact that my mother was super anxious a lot of the time when she was pregnant with me. And I'll go so far to say she didn't have the greatest self-esteem. And so she had a lot of self-doubt and self-hate and just a lot of, it wasn't pretty. And I'm bathing in that, right? And then I'm born and she had more stress, and I could go on and on with that story. But I couldn't figure out for the darndest, for decades, why I woke up in the morning feeling anxious, because I had nothing to feel anxious about. And then I started looking at all this and realizing it's literally what I was born into. And my mother's, when you're with you and your mother are literally one being until about the age of 8 or 9. You don't even know you're separate. So you really want to take a look at the emotional climate that you were birthed into and bathing in, and ask yourself today, are you suffering from something that you may have been exposed to very young? Take a look at that. Think about that. because it imprinted. And your body is like what, 99% water. We're basically walking around sack of water. That's what we are. And if water can be imprinted by thoughts and emotions, which we see the science behind it now, then if I was inside your head, would the thoughts I would be hearing and the emotions I would be feeling from you, would it be imprinting health or dis-ease in the bag of water you're living in? Think about that. We live here, between here and here. We live in here. Your self-talk is the number one either problem or best friend you have. And most people don't take charge of their thoughts. They think their thoughts are just happening. Thoughts don't just happen. You're generating those thoughts, and you're generating them based on what you've learned, what you accepted to be true, what you hear, what you allowed in, what you watch a lot of the time, maybe not every day, but what you watch, what you listen to, and what you think. That's what creates the thoughts. And then the thoughts, in the way the brain works, is that when you have certain thoughts that you repeat, the brain keeps bringing you more of the same. You'll start noticing more, and you'll hear other people talking about it, and you'll start to see more and more and more of what you're already thinking. The brain, you know how when you go to you go to Dr. Google and you type in the words arthritis, it brings up 10,000 pages with all the information that's on arthritis, right? Your brain works the same way. It's like a search engine. So when you're thinking about pain or back pain or anxiety or whatever you're thinking about, your brain starts searching and bringing up more like items. You won't even notice the other information after a while. You won't. You'll think it doesn't exist because your brain is doing its job, and it's bringing you what you've typed in. And all you need to do is think about it again and again and again for it to get the message of what you're asking about. It's like going to Google. If you keep typing in arthritis, you're not going to see information on skiing in Aspen. It just doesn't compute. You're going to keep seeing more and more related things that relate to arthritis or pain or whatever you're typing in. That's what happens here. You are so powerful. Your thoughts are so powerful. You're not a victim of all this. Nobody's taught you how to use all this properly. So when you use your inner technology, which is what your mind is, when you use it improperly, and you get the results you don't want, then you feel like a victim of it. I get it. But once you start to realize, oh boy, there's things I better learn. I'm not using my equipment properly. Then you have a whole new horizon, a whole new life possible for you. The first thing you really, that I want you to understand is the importance of your energy field that's being influenced by your and other people's thoughts and emotions. It's the key to your health. The energy field must come first. Must come first. Unfortunately, it's still last on everybody's list because it's not familiar. People think it's woo-woo. It's not woo-woo. I'd like to shake that into people's heads. It's so not woo-woo. It just wasn't funded. So more and more, it's getting out there. And more people are talking about it and understanding and recognizing the power of energy, frequency, and vibration. Thoughts every thought it generates an emotional reaction. Every thought is connected to an emotion. Every emotion generates more thoughts. Some people are aware of their thoughts, some people are not. Some people are aware of their emotions, and some people are not. Just because you're not aware of your emotions doesn't mean you're not having them. And just because you're aware all the time of how you feel, but you say, well, I'm not thinking anything, that's not true. And it doesn't mean that, it just means you're not aware of your thoughts, that you jump quickly to the emotions because that's your learning style. Some people are more feelers, emotions are easier for them to process. And some people are more thinkers. And some people are just very in touch with their body. And so they just notice their body's reactions. And other people are completely unaware of their body. I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about it. We have a style that we've somehow developed and a dominant way that we process life, that we become aware of information. And if you start to recognize it's all information, everywhere there's information, all that empty space, it's filled with information that you're picking up in some way, and you're processing it all day and all night, even when you sleep. That's what dreams are helping you do. You are constantly processing information. So when I say everything's energy, it is, but in addition to that, it's information that's invisible to the naked eye. And that's what perhaps is even more important, and that very few people are talking about. Because the information, we live in a world where we're taught, if you can't touch it and you can't see it, it's make believe. Wrong. I'm sorry, it's wrong. We know dogs see and hear an entire range of things that humans don't. Does that make it not real? No, it means that we haven't accessed that information that the dogs access. And there are certain people who are considered gifted or psychic or whatever. They aren't special. They just are accessing more information than the average person. But what if I told you everyone's capable of expanding the amount of information that you're able to perceive? You're all capable of that. Part of what will help you is just being open to the possibility that this even exists. Whether you accept it or not, whether you agree with it or not, whether you believe in it or not, it still exists. So your belief won't influence it. But if you're willing to be open to that it's possible, you're more apt to have that experience come into your reality and assist you. Because think about it, if you had more information at your fingertips, it makes life easier. It gives you more options, not less. And I think what happens is sometimes people are afraid of the unknown. They're afraid, like I was terrified of the dark when I was a kid. If I couldn't see it, I didn't want to be near it. I wouldn't even go down in the basement with the lights on. I wanted to feel in control. I was afraid of the unknown. And I think that is what I have found working with so many people, is that's the number one fear, is feeling out of control in the unknown territory. So they don't even want to know. There could be a big ghost in that closet, so I don't even want to open the closet. But what if you found a key in that closet that you needed by exploring something unfamiliar, something unknown? That's what this whole energy field is about. And it's really not that it's not that difficult to grasp once you get the hang of it. Have you ever had that experience where you meet someone that you've never met before and you get this strong feeling of either disliking them and you don't know why because you've never met them, or really liking them? And just have this immediate feeling of, I like that person. Anybody have that experience? They feel familiar sometimes. You're picking up on their energy field. And what's happening is you're resonating with them. Everything in the universe is about resonance. Resonance is harmony. You're in sync. You're on the same wavelength, literally. And so there's a blending that feels good. When you come into contact with something or someone that doesn't feel right, but you can't logically explain why, you're getting the important signal from the energy field that this may not be great for you. And we all have these experiences. I bet everybody here at some point has had some experience where after you did what you did, you said, damn, I wish I hadn't done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Right? Because you did know. You felt the information because you picked it up, and it's all out there. Nothing is hidden from you. So right now, whether you know it or not, you have all the answers to everything inside of you. Now, you may not have learned to trust it or listen. You may have a lot of self-doubt. You may have had a lot of programmed, conditioning that tells you you don't know anything, but that's not the case. So one of the things when I work with people, I think the biggest, most important thing that I help people with is helping them, A, get in touch with what's inside of them that they do know, how to learn to trust that again, and recognize that your feeling nature is far more important than anything you've learned and read in a book or been told you should believe. And that that subtle voice, that feeling, that instinct, that hunch, that's your GPS. Nature's pretty straightforward, and you are part of nature, and you may have forgotten that. Because we have a mind and intellect, we've been given free will, we can think, we're the only animals that can think and make decisions and use our will to do what we want. Now that can be a great thing, and that can also be a bad problem if you're not tuned in to your instinctual nature as well. The ideal situation is to use them both together, the head and the heart and the gut, all working together in sync. In fact, the logical mind should be the backup to the gut and the heart. But what tends to happen is the head overrides the gut and the heart, and that's where we get into problems. And that eventually, if you do that long enough, shows up as pain and symptoms and suffering. Your body tells the story of your life. I promise you it does. Your symptoms are there for a reason. They have a message in it for you. They're not your enemy. They have a message. And if you learn to listen, which is what I teach people, how to listen, how to really develop that relationship with your deep inner body, your knowing, your mind, your heart, your gut, this is how you stay on the right track for you. When you step off of that track, you will feel dis-ease. So how many times during the day do you notice yourself feeling uneasy about something or someone, but you ignore it, or you say, well, I don't want to make any waves. I don't want to cause any conflict. I don't want to say anything. And you just say, well, just this one time, I'll let it go. If it happens again. Anybody following me? Give me some kind of feedback here. Thumbs up. Okay, good. I'm getting the hands waving at me. I like that. Okay, good. I want to make sure you're with me and that I'm not talking Greek here. All right, good. You know when you're not in ease, and not feeling at ease, safe, is the root of dis-ease. Now that may sound very oversimplified, but let me say it again, because it really is that simple. When you're not at ease and you don't feel safe, that is the root of dis-ease. If you do that long enough, it's imprinting, and it will show up in your body, in your mind, in your life. It will show up in the physical universe, world. So the key is to discover, why would you do something again and again that's creating dis-ease? Well, if you're like me, you do it because you learned to do it when you were young, and you were afraid to do anything else because you may have gotten punished or shamed or blamed, or didn't feel like you fit in, thought you would lose love. So you learned to step off of your right path. And you may still be doing that, and a 6-year-old may be running your 60-year-old life. And this is what I see every day. And I work with people from all over the world, with a wide range of chronic conditions. And I will tell you that they show up in different forms, but at the root of all of this, we are a lot alike. A lot alike. There's a lot of similarities in what's going on. And the solution is similar for everyone. Your story may be different. Yes, you have a unique journey here, but the solutions are the same. And there are 3 areas, and only 3 areas, that you need to explore if you want to heal from anything. The lovely mind, and all the thoughts that you keep repeating that may or may not be true, and may or may not be serving you at all. Number 2, your amazing feeling nature, your emotional nature, your heart, your feelings that you may or may not be aware of, that you may or may not be allowing. The emotions are supposed to be energy in motion. But most people that are sick or in pain, they are stopping the movement of that emotion, of that energy. And this is a huge problem. And these frequencies completely affect your health. And again, this is science. Dr. Hunt measured this, and she saw again and again, to the point where she said, and I've been saying this for years, but when I saw her research, which wasn't that, it wasn't decades ago, it was recent. And she said the same thing. She said, I am convinced emotions are the number 1 problem with disease and pain. Think about that. And I've just seen it over and over and over and over and over and over with most people, that they're either not aware of, or don't allow the emotional energy to release. They don't know how, and they're afraid to let those emotions up. I certainly was. I mean, I thought if I allowed my emotions to come up, they would never stop. I would just like cry into eternity or something. I also thought I would look really foolish, that I would never be able to work because I would just be a mess, a wreck, and I wouldn't be able to pay my bills or take care of my responsibilities. And I thought everyone would judge me as harshly as I was judging myself. So I learned to shove those things deep down. And I grew up in a family where only certain emotions were allowed. And there were repercussions if, think about it. Anger is a very powerful emotion. You feel strong and powerful with anger, right? And to the extreme, anger can be used to abuse and hurt people. So a lot of people, particularly women, are often afraid of feeling anger. They're afraid of that powerful feeling, because they've confused a feeling with a behavior. And this is another thing I really want you to hear tonight. Feelings are different than the behaviors. Feeling anger is not the same as putting your fist in someone's face. Putting your fist is a behavior. Feeling anger is a feeling, and feelings are not good, bad, right, wrong. They're energy, and they're all important. And at times, they're all appropriate. And when you try to stop them and suppress them, guess what happens? It builds up. Think of like a Coca-Cola can that you shake. And every time you feel a certain emotion that you don't want to feel, you shake that can. And then you feel it again and you shake that can. And then one day you open that can and it just explodes. That's how people end up putting their fist through someone's face, because they've been shaking the can for 10 years, never being honest about how they feel. And it all comes out at once, sideways, in a very ugly way. It's energy. So we have to examine the thoughts. We have to examine the emotions. We have to learn to find the disturbing thoughts and the disturbing emotions and release them. And the energy field. Those are the three areas. And there's nowhere else to look, my friends. It's either mind, emotion, or energy field. And we live in a world that's basically only looking at the body. And this is why we're upside down and backwards and not figuring it out. So if you start looking in the mind, the emotions, and the energy field, and by the way, you can't just look at one. I have worked, some of this won't sound new to you. Some of you have probably heard and worked on your beliefs, for example. But if you only work on your beliefs, it's not going to be enough. And some people come to me and they say, well, I've done such and such method to clear emotions, but they haven't worked on their beliefs or their energy field. And some people say, well, I've done Reiki and energy healing and, it's relaxing, but nothing changes, because you haven't examined and worked with your thoughts and your emotions, and you're expecting the magic wand effect, which can feel great and it can work for a period of time. But if you don't change your thoughts and you don't change your emotions, you're going to bring back the same vibrational pattern and information that is causing the problem. You see what I mean? So this is where people go south and they say, Deborah, I've been working on myself for decades. Why do I still hurt? By the way, that reminds me, if you haven't downloaded a copy of my book yet, please do. I wrote a book called Why Do I Still Hurt? For you. I got tired of hearing this. So this is what's in the book, and it's kind of like a workbook. So it will give you a new way of thinking about all this. It will start to ask you questions that will begin your healing journey. You can get a book that you can write in on Amazon, or you can get a free copy on my website at internationalcpi.com, and that you can download to any device. So please, if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do that. People write to me all the time and they say, wow, it changed the way I look at all of this. And I want you to get results. All right. There's so much I could say about all of this. let me check the chat because I see a lot of questions or something going on in there. Tanya's saying conventional tools have helped for crisis, but have not improved overall well-being. I still have difficulty enjoying yoga because my mind wanders and I get anxious. Any tips? Yes, ma'am. First of all, it's no different than meditation. It's not always going to feel enjoyable because of your mind. Your mind wandering is normal for your mind. That's what your mind is. Your mind is designed to think, okay? And that's not going to change. Yoga, meditation, walking, artwork, any kind of, martial arts, these things are tools, practices. That's why they call it a yoga practice. It's not a yoga perfection. It's a yoga practice where you're learning to retrain the mind to focus in one place. And you're not going to do it perfectly. But what happens is when you notice your mind is over here you bring it back. And then it goes and you bring it back. And it goes and you bring it back. And you may, on some days, you may have to do that 100 times a day in the class. And you're looking at that person's yoga pants, and you're looking at that person's touching their toes, and you're thinking, I can't, all the stuff that goes on. And you just keep bringing it back and bringing it back to your mat, to your pose, to your breath. It's the same with meditation. You just keep bringing it back. That's how you retrain the mind. And then on other days, you're going to be in the zone of bliss where it's quiet. And you're like, oh my God, I felt like I was in my own bubble. And it was just so relaxing. You'll have moments like those. Sometimes you'll have many minutes like that, maybe even a whole yoga class like that. You will, because I've gotten to a place where pretty much all through yoga, I can just stay in my bubble. But, I've been practicing for many years. So these things, and there are still days where I just like, when is this class going to be over? I don't have it that often anymore, but it can still happen. So those are the times, Tanya and everyone, the days that you feel you're getting distracted, those are the days when your practice is even more important than ever. If you're already feeling zen in your bubble, okay, that's not when you need the training the most. You need it on the days where you're like, when is this going to end? I can't wait to get out of here. How long? When is she going to change the pose? Like, that's when you need to breathe and slow it down. And what happens in these practices, whether you're doing high-speed healing with me and your mind's wandering, it's all the same. Your mind is just showing you your state of consciousness and where you're at in that moment, on that particular day. And you are training. It's like training a dog. Don't pee in the house. Simple as that. You're training your mind to come back here. Come back here. Don't run away. Come back here. It's like putting the leash on the dog. So also what you're noticing is that you say you get anxious. Well, what happens when you do any kind of real healing, the things that are in the way of your peace come up. So they will come up when you meditate, when you do high-speed healing with me, when you do yoga, when you maybe even take a walk in nature. When you get quiet, you're going to notice what's in the way of your peace more than you'll notice it if you stay distracted all day on social media and doing all these things that we've learned to do to stay out of the present moment. Yoga, high-speed healing will bring you to the present moment. And in the present moment, you'll know what's in the way of your peace. It'll get in your face and you won't like it. But that's what I've been talking about earlier in the call. You don't want to stop that, numb that out, suppress or repress or drug it out. You want to learn to be aware of it and release it, not distract yourself from it in any way. I hope that makes sense. Oh, Cindy's saying, yeah, there was a movie years ago called What the Bleep Do We Know? That was a very life-changing movie for a lot of people, because it was one of the first, if not the first, that really connected the facts that quantum physics and consciousness are related to our physical experience, our health, our reality, our physical body. So yeah, you are correct. What I want to impress upon you today, well, here's a question coming in. Can emotional trauma or chronic pain originate from a past life and be recycled to this current lifetime? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in fact, I would go so far as to say, it's not recycled. You bring everything with you. It's what I said earlier in the call. You are a composite of everything you've ever been through on any place on the timeline. I don't particularly know that I believe in past lives, but you've had prior experience before this one, let's put it that way, or maybe parallel experiences. And yes, you have a memory, a cellular memory, a memory in your consciousness of all of those. In fact, it's made you who you are today. And so the key to recognize is you don't need to remember the lifetime or remember the experience. You need to be aware of what's troubling you today. And when you work on yourself in this moment, and we work all these things are in your energy field. So you are going to address all of that if you just deal with what is coming up and what's troubling you in your life in today. And so many people get lost in trying to figure out their past lives, thinking they need to do that to heal. And I'm sorry, and I don't mean to offend anyone if you believe differently, but in the way I work with people, that is actually not the case. You can deal with anything from any lifetime in the here and now. And in fact, that's the only place you can deal with it. So, and I'm a hypnotherapist. I don't practice that anymore, but I've had people do past life regressions and do all kinds of things. Working in the biofield, which is what I do with my high-speed healing method, you access all of that. And anything that's disturbed from a lifetime prior is in your biofield and can be cleared. And it actually doesn't even take that long, and it doesn't have to be difficult, and you don't always have to go back and relive it. Some people don't even realize it's being cleared, but they feel different, like immediately. So yeah, that's a great question. And Nancy's saying, if I was born with my mother's trauma and I don't know what calm actually feels like, how do I release that? Good question. So there's a state of consciousness right here and now for every single one of you that's here or listening to this call. It's a state of consciousness right now where you are not sick. There's no dis-ease. It's a different frequency. I'd like you to think about it like your cable TV. You got one channel that you're watching and it's a horror movie. You got another channel that's a romance. You got another channel that's a documentary, another that's the weather. These are different frequencies. When you change the channel, you're going to a different frequency, literally, and you're getting a completely different movie. You're like that. When you're dialed into a particular frequency and you're focused on it, you tend to stay there. It creates a familiar channel, a pattern. And what I'm asking you today to do is to recognize it's not the only reality. You may need a leg up to change the channel, but you can change that channel. That's why I do recommend that the first step in your recovery should be high-speed healing, because it's the safest, fastest, easiest way to change the frequencies of what's going on with you. And what you're expressing and experiencing, even if you were born with your mother's trauma, is a particular frequency that you got imprinted with. And we want to change the frequency. And you can't think your way into that. Well, you can, but if you knew how to do that, you would have done that by now. So you need a leg up until you can hold the new pattern. Because here's what's interesting. Even when I help people all the time completely shift everything they've been complaining about, that they don't want, that they want to feel bliss and healthy and happy and joy and freedom and ease, they will often start to freak out when they don't know who they are anymore, and they don't know how to live in this new frequency. So they tend to need some support for a while, getting used to, believe it or not, being comfortable. I did. When everything started getting all calmed down for me and I had stopped having chaos and depression and anxiety, you know what I told my mentor at the time? I said, I think something's wrong. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't know, everything feels kind of flat, a little bit boring. Like, I don't know, nothing's happening. And she said, honey, that's called contentment. You're used to drama and chaos, pain and problems. And I was so used to that I would stir it up if it got too calm. And so I had to get reoriented to a life that was peaceful, that was consistent, that lacked drama, and discover the beauty and a whole new way of living. So it's a different frequency. It's a different vibration. Literally, the people that I ended up, people changed in my life. My career changed, my house, my husband, like everything changed for me. It doesn't always change like that for everybody. But for me, I was so out of alignment with what was right for me, like everything changed and it needed to. And that's, it takes some getting used to. It's kind of like if tomorrow all the furniture in your house changed and all the clothes in your closet were different, it might take a little getting used to. But that doesn't mean you can't feel calm and you can't start to enjoy it and that you can't release trauma. You can. In fact, again, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't see it, if I didn't see over and over, especially with trauma, by the way. It is without a doubt the fastest way I've seen people release trauma with the least amount of emotional upheaval than any other method that I've practiced or been trained in or know about. I'm talking, I work with people with severe trauma. Like sometimes it's painful to hear their stories. It's so traumatic. And I watch them in a very short time, sometimes right away from the very first session, start to release decades of trauma that really crippled them. And they're not crippled anymore. They're free and they're living life. And everyone's capable of this. Don't ever think there's something wrong or weird or different or unique about you. I mean, yes, you're unique, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing unique about you that would keep you from being able to heal and release trauma. You can. Dorian is saying, all of what you say resonates deeply and always has. Nevertheless, in short, aside from meditation, constant trauma work on emotional, ancestral aspect, pain management, most recent severe physical trauma has caused now constant widespread pain. Ketamine therapy has been recommended. Any thoughts? Well, I'm not going to give medical advice, but what I will say is I can tell you right now that you're missing, there's some blind spots because pain management, I'm not talking about managing anything. And number one. Number two, although drugs, there are certain drugs that give people awareness as to the roots of what's going on, I've also seen how it didn't give them enough tools to hold the changes and create change after they were aware. Now they're aware, but they're still not changing. And quite frankly, there's nothing worse than that. You're aware and you're still not changing. Or the changes are short-lived. And I'm not a big fan of becoming drug dependent because that almost killed me. So, I'm a big fan of finding deep healing without drugs, but that's me. I'm not here to give medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I do know people love that type of therapy. I will also say that meditation is done by yourself. And if you could have fixed yourself by now, you would have. So you need a guide. And most of us don't want a guide because then they're going to see who we really are. And deep down, if you're like me, you may have some shame or some guilt or something you don't want people to get too close. Maybe you feel afraid because you were abused or you don't trust people. I sure didn't trust people. I still don't really trust a lot of people that easily, quite frankly. And I'm a big fat skeptic. There's a lot of junk out there I hear every day. And I'm just like, that's BS. It's, you have to be discerning. And so what I would say, Dorian, is don't give up hope, but it's about your frequencies. And until you get the right frequencies and the right tools to see where something's off, I mean, you're the kind of person I would love to work with one-on-one. Even just, I offer an introductory discovery session where we go deep into all of this stuff. Even that, even if you just try that one session, it could be life-changing for you. There's something you're not seeing, and the people you're working with aren't seeing or asking you the right questions. And so you're still getting, you know, kind of the new Band-Aids, but they still kind of sound like Band-Aids to me. So that's my 2 cents, you know, for that. And I hear you. I know you're not alone. There's a lot of people. These are still not getting to the root. But Einstein even taught us, if you're exposed to the right frequency, the body must change. See, so that is exactly what Dr. Hunt said too, that if you've got to have the frequency change. And by the way, it's not all about a higher vibration. Some people actually need lower frequencies. This is not all this fluffy stuff we're hearing online. It's just not all that accurate. It's not all about, we don't all need a higher vibration. Some of us are so high and wired, you need like deep, heavy, grounded, low frequencies, right? Not any higher anything. So some people are overstimulated already. You don't need a higher vibration, a higher frequency. And some people are understimulated, and they have different kinds of conditions that show up, and they need a higher, faster vibration. So when I work on some people, they tell me, wow, I felt like my heart was pounding out of my chest, like I was all speeded up inside. And I'm like, you needed the higher, faster vibration. Your frequency is too slow and low for the conditions you have. And other people say, oh my God, I felt so heavy. I even tried to test it. I couldn't even lift my arm. I felt like I was just like in my body in a way I've never felt before. See, very different people, very different conditions, very different vibrations. Let's see. So Cindy is saying the change to a different frequency and what it would mean makes it difficult to take that final step. Well, I don't really understand that. I know you well enough to know to say that I don't understand what you mean by that, other than, and I could be misinterpreting, but what I suspect you're saying is you're scared of who you're going to become if you actually change. And that's really what's going on planet Earth. People say, I want to change, help me, please, I want to change. But then when change starts to happen, they run for the hills. And I want to tell you, this is very normal. I see this in almost every client that I work with privately and in my groups, that somewhere along the line, and it's curious because it's often around the 3rd or 4th week, it doesn't even take that long. Usually changes start to happen right away when I work with people in the first or second time I work with them, whether it's alone or in a group. And they're going, wow, something's finally working. And then you know what they do in the next session? They say, nothing's working. I don't think this is working at all. And I'm different. Or they say, I don't feel like coming to the class. I don't feel like doing the session this week. Can we skip a week or push it out a week or two? They don't know what they're doing, but what it is it's the unconscious fear coming up because a part of them knows, hey, the gig is up, pal. You're about to die. This old pattern is about to adios. And it gets scared because you don't know what's around the bend, but you do know your familiar pattern. You've been navigating that for a long time and you feel in control. So part of you wants change and part of you says, don't move. And there's a really important tipping point that if you try to do this all by yourself, usually that's why people run back to shore, because you can't get yourself over that hump typically without somebody catching you in the act. and helping you and holding you by the hand a little bit and saying, look at what you're doing. And just trust a little bit and stay with me. And then they get over the hump and then they go, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And I've just seen this with almost everybody, like literally. So I suspect that's what's happening with you, Cindy, because I know you well enough to know you had phenomenal healing, massive change in a very short time. And then you kind of disappeared. And I wonder if that wasn't your resistance coming up a little bit, maybe feeling like it was happening too fast, or I don't know, but think about that and see if that applies. Let's see. Nancy said, is this true for trauma that doesn't come with memories, but what may have occurred early in life in the womb? If I'm understanding this question correctly, yes, you may not have any recollection of where your trauma comes from at all. And you don't necessarily need to remember or go back and dig around in it. But it can still be released and it's imprinted. So this is often the mystery. You know, people have these mystery symptoms and nothing shows up on a medical test. And the doctors are like, we don't know what to do for you. Take this pill, take that pill. But they don't know really, they don't know what's wrong. It's often this type of thing. I've had a lot of people re-experience their birth trauma. Imagine that. You're alive and aware and awake during your birth process, but you probably don't remember that. But I've had people remember it during high-speed healing sessions. The other thing that's pretty interesting is that if you've ever gone under anesthesia for surgery or any type of operation, a part of you was awake and aware of everything that happened. And you also had emotions going on, but you probably don't remember them because you were under anesthesia. And it suppresses emotions and it suppresses the body's reaction. And you were hearing everything. And I don't mean to sound like all doctors do this, but I grew up in a family with a lot of doctors, and my dad had all his friends were doctors, and they would come over to play poker once a week or whenever it was with my dad. And I would listen to those conversations. My God, I was traumatized by what I heard them say. And they would make jokes about things. And I know that was part of how they survived the heavy, the heaviness of the career they chose. But wow, if you're hearing a doctor and you're under anesthesia and they're laughing or they're telling jokes, it may not even be about you, but you're hearing some inappropriate, you're taking that in. And you're under anesthesia, but you're not able to fully release and express those emotions. You're not able to say anything. That can be imprinted as a trauma that I've worked on a lot of people who came out of surgery with symptoms they didn't have when they went in. And it's from these types of experiences. The fear of having surgery. I'll never forget when a woman remembered, I was working on her after surgery, she came out really not good and they didn't know why. Well, she had the memory of, as she was going under, she thought, oh my God, what if I pee and everybody sees me and I'll be on like, these are real thoughts and emotions that people have. It's normal, but it gets suppressed and then the energy gets stuck and it doesn't release and then it shows up as a symptom. I had a little girl who had bone cancer and she had surgery for it and they said it was a success. She was 8 years old, but she came out of the surgery with pain everywhere that they didn't understand and nothing showed up on a test. So the doctors didn't know what to do for her. And I was brought into the hospital to work on her. I mean, no one would have figured this out. So I'm working on her and within 15 minutes, she starts crying and telling me she overheard her parents talking about getting a divorce. And she thought it was her fault. And this was right before she went in for the surgery. Okay, do you get my point? emotions, powerful, imprinting, affecting our physical body. Then they show up as a mystery symptom that's never going to show up on a test. And so we have to find these things in the energy field. I think you're hearing me. So one last question. Does fatigue translate to vibration needed? Well, fatigue is a vibrational pattern. It's its own particular vibration. And, we get used to these vibrations. In fact, they can even be kind of addicting, really. And they're familiar. Again, we like familiar. It's comfortable. Even if part of us doesn't like it, we know how to navigate it. We get really good at it. And we don't know how to navigate having a ton of energy. If you've been fatigued for a year or 2 or 10, you probably have certain thoughts like, well, what if I start doing stuff again and then I get exhausted? What if I decide to travel and then I find out I don't have the energy and I'm stuck in another country or city or state? You see, these fearful thoughts kick in because you're used to a pattern. So what has to happen is we have to change the pattern, which is changing the frequency. We also have to work on the thoughts and the emotions, and you do it step by step, a little at a time, so that you start to get comfortable with a new pattern. And these are patterns of thought, emotions, energy, and physical. And you do this till you're comfortable in your new pattern. And some people are faster than others. It's not a competition, but you will go at a pace that's right for you. You won't have changes that you can't handle. You just won't have them. You'll shut it down. So when I work with people, some people literally overnight, everything changes, everything. And other people, it's a slower journey. But even in my world, slow is still fast. When I say slow, I mean, it might take months or a month instead of 2 to 10 years. So, there's really an ability to rapidly change without feeling overwhelmed, like it's too much too fast. And remember, you're always in control. You're always in charge. You can always say no. No, when you work with me, I never take any options away from you. You'll always be able to go back to whatever pattern you want to. And you won't get more than you can handle. So no one takes anything away from you here. It's just expanding your world, your options, your abilities. And that's very freeing for people. And just to know that you really are in control more than you know. Even though you might have a fear, you really are in control. So I hope that's reassuring. I don't know where an hour and a half just went, but we've been here an hour and a half. So I have to go because I still have one more appointment, but I wanted to say thank you for being here. And for those of you that want more of my help, please know I am here for you. This is my greatest passion. I'm not leaving you. There's many different ways to work with me. And if you would like to work with me privately, you know who you are. Please reach out. There are a couple of different options to work with me one-on-one. I also have a group program that's live with other amazing, loving people. And I have even a home study, go at your own pace, as slow or fast as you like. There's a pain-free living program e-course that's just a home study. You just do it on your own. There's like something for every preference. And if you're not sure which or what would be best for you, then please send me an email and I will help you figure that out. And get a copy of my book. You can email at internationalcpi.com and you'll find all the services listed there as well as where you can email. But whatever you do, please do something. Don't sit and spin for another decade trying to figure it out on your own. Let me help you. I finally, I really have a lot of experience with this. It's my greatest pleasure to help you remove the blind spots, and I would love to be there for you. And keep an eye on your email, please, because I have some exciting new things coming down the pike in April, and just a lot of amazing things happening. So you'll find something for you that will fit you and what you're ready for. And if I can be there for you in any way, just reach out. It would be a great pleasure to help you. Thank you for being here today, and thanks for the great questions. And come back soon. All right. Much love, everybody. Bye for now. Have a great rest of your day or night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you,